Hello, it's Nikki. Welcome back. This is a slightly different one for me today, and I'm going to be giving you a tangible example of maternity leave. But actually, the principles that I'm talking about within this are really relevant for lots of my clients going through stuff. Many of my clients are a similar age to me, in their 40s, who might have other stuff going on. And we know that we are not in this time any longer where people just say, just work harder or just get up an hour earlier. We have real things in our lives that take a toll on our health, our mental health, our petrol. We're going here, there, and everywhere. And it's not just a mindset thing. Sometimes we have a whole other something that is on our plate, and we have to acknowledge it and we have to work with it rather than just saying, oh no, it's fine, I just won't mention it and I'll just carry on as normal. And then very quickly you're sliding down a wall like Pat Butcher in The Square, crying because it is too much. And you're a human being with human needs, and they need to be taken care of. But for the purposes of the storytelling, because you know I love a story, I'm going to be talking about preparing yourself as a freelancer or somebody who's self-employed for maternity leave. And this is very prevalent for me at this time of year because my baby, so I had a son, my son, not a random son. I had my son in 2015 in the October. And I had my daughter in 2019 in August. So this time, July, as I'm recording this, is very nostalgic for me. This was a time when I was really figuring out, okay, how's all this going to go? Because there's a baby on the way. And the thing is, there's all these lovely things, of course, where people talk to you more when you're pregnant and give you a lot of unsolicited advice as well. But there is a dawning when you're pregnant that you have no idea what is in store. And I had a bit more of an idea the second time around, but I didn't know the baby that I was going to have. I didn't know the birth that I was going to have. I didn't know how I would feel. And so there is often quite a bit of intrepidation because you don't know what is round the corner. So, that being said, my pregnancy with my son was very hot. 2015 was a really, really hot summer. And I think around this time, I think it reached about 37 degrees in London. And I remember just thinking, no, this is too much. So even in that July, even though I worked till the September, I already felt very lethargic, and he was £9.10 as well. So I was very much that pregnant woman, probably from about 5 weeks. You know, when people are like, I wasn't really showing until I literally was showing the day after conception. And with my daughter, because I'd had a big baby with my son, he was £9.10, they wanted to do a lot more checks on me. And so I reckon I had about 45 appointments during my pregnancy with my daughter. So I had my 3-year-old at home. Yes, he was at home, and then nursery some of the time. I was also doing my freelance work, and then I had my daughter. I was pregnant with her, and I was in that hospital all the time, a couple of times a week, just showing my face, going in for various things. Of course, I really appreciated the care, but it's quite another thing to add into your week. Another thing I want to talk about is that work for me is so part of my identity. And there have been so many times over the years, this is just me being very honest with you, where I've thought, is there when work's been hard or challenging or not happening quick enough, or you go through those self-doubt cycles. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, so there've definitely been ripples of that. When I've had moments to myself of saying, is there really nothing else that I could do? For the most part, unless you catch me on a day where I'm like, maybe I could be an estate agent, mostly the answer is no. There is nothing else that I want to do. And this is really tied up in my identity because I love what I do. So the thought of ignoring it or not paying any attention to it or not being in a relationship with it for up to a year was quite something to get my head around. It's almost, if you really love your cup of coffee in the morning and if somebody's like, don't know, maybe you shouldn't really have it for the next year or think about it, there'll be other times where you can think about it. The instinct is still, no, I really love my coffee, thanks very much. The second thing that I want to talk about is that, and it's okay to admit this, and I guess what I want to do with this video is to give you full permission to really acknowledge your feelings. So for me, it wasn't an option to take a prolonged length of time off work and just say, I just don't know what to do with myself. I'm just going to have a lovely time, because we had always worked on the basis of both being self-employed parents and we wanted to co-parent and figure that out in that way. Also, we had money goals. We wanted to do things. We wanted to go places. We wanted to move and all of these things. So to think that I wouldn't do anything for a year was just, didn't feel right for me. Again, no judgment to anybody else's situation. And secondly, it wasn't really an option. We live in London, overheads, life, Number 3, I felt really good that I could decide. And this is when your freelance life really comes into play. You can decide. You can dictate where you go next. So I know some of my corporate friends, they've had to sign when they're coming back, what they're doing. And some people have gone back and they've thought, oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm here. This feels, I feel, especially if they've had a long recovery, it's just maybe felt too much, or a baby that's just not slept for months on end. Like, I totally get it. And equally, people who are on maternity leave and about 12 weeks in, they think, I can't believe that I'm just going to be around this house for another 9 months. I want to get back into the groove. I want to connect with myself again. There are so many things in that. So here are some things that I want to share with you. And I think there's going to be 2 parts to this. So this is part 1. Number 1, everything is temporary. And I think this is important as a freelancer, as somebody who might be transitioning or navigating a new or a different chapter. Sometimes we can believe that this is the start of something completely new and scary, and there's no positives are going to come from this. And when you're in it, it feels really hard. It feels like you'll never come out the other side. And I remember my son turning about 6 months, and he started to wean, and therefore there was a bit more rhythm in his day. And suddenly something switched. I mean, he didn't sleep till he was 3.5, but that's another story. But 6 months in, I got into the groove. I got into the groove of him. And I think if somebody had told me that when he was born, that everything is temporary and there will be a time where you will sleep again, that would have been hugely encouraging, let's just say. Number 2, we're going to talk about the patriarchy. The patriarchy want to tell us that once we've had a baby, that is it for us as women. Or once we're over 40, or once we start caring for a parent, or once we ask to go part-time because the full-time option is no longer an option, it just does not work for us. That's what society wants to say, is that we're backing out. We're standing down. We're moving away. And with my son especially, and maybe it was having a son, but I suddenly felt more purposeful than ever before. Now, I was often only half dressed and I was in bed a lot, so I wasn't purposeful out in the world. I mean, maybe like going and buying some milk in the corner shop, but it really made me think. And then, especially since later then having a girl, things like the pay gap, it just, because I've got a boy and a girl in my house, I was just thinking that'd be so weird that my son would get paid for the whole year and then my daughter would get paid up until that, is it early November when the gap starts, and she wouldn't get paid for the rest of the year. And I suddenly thought, I can't let myself be out of this game. But equally, I'm going to have to be patient with myself because this is going to take time. But also, and there's a lot of alsos, but here I want to tell you that I have had some of the most incredible highlights since becoming a mum. And this narrative that you have to do everything before you do that, would probably make you feel rushed. But what if you have your baby at 19 or 29 or 39 or whatever it is? That sense of, well, it's all downhill for me now and that's it for me. I don't buy it. I really don't. And the important thing to recognize is that if you don't see it directly in front of you, you have to seek it out. You have to look for other role models, people who are working out success on their terms. And this is where the podcast has come in so brilliantly, because I love all the chats that I have with people. So yeah, that's number 2. Number 3, Instagram and social media is trying to sell you things. And often the people who are selling to you have been gifted that product. And so they need to sell more to justify the fact that they have been gifted. There were definitely times where that bombardment of buy this and get this and we've just purchased this and hashtag gifted and ad, and it felt so overwhelming. It felt like I had to consume and buy and do all of the things, and you only have to go on a department store's website or even a small business. It's like, you might like this, you might like this, and you can get really drawn into the fact that you have to spend loads of money. And I'm not saying that we are still in that time where people said, oh, I don't know, my mum just had a drawer and put a blanket in. We want to keep our baby safe and well and nourished and all of that. But I realized very quickly that I needed to be smart with the money that I had available to me. And the temptation, especially at this time, in the early days, is that everything looks so cute, everything looks so adorable, and you want to be the best mum. And sometimes that best mum tag is associated with buying the best things. And one of the things that I realized was that if I was going to provide, if I was going to grow, if I was going to step into this next chapter, I still needed to invest in myself. And so since having children, I have gone on and I've worked with people and I've made big investments in my business as well. And sometimes that has been at the expense of not having a picture perfect gallery wall, for example, or not having designer clothes for my children. And that's okay. And I've also realized, going back to point number 1, that everything is temporary. And therefore, if they're only going to be in something for 2.5 weeks, and even on the 3rd wash, you try to put it on their head and they're like, nope. And especially with my son, he grew so fast. In that first picture from the hospital, he looked like he was going to work. He was packed out already. I had to have that reckoning with myself of thinking about money, of what it could do and where it was going to go next. And sometimes that made me feel bad about myself. Sometimes that made me feel that, I don't know, I wasn't doing all of the things. But the truth is, it's a trick sometimes. It's people are just trying to make you buy more stuff. And also, I don't want to do that. I don't want to buy more stuff all of the time. And sometimes I'll get things secondhand, because why would I buy it brand new? So many things. There's a siren. Here we go. Number 4. Bit more of a business stuff now. Create an excellent shop front where people know who you are, what you do, and who you help. This is absolutely crucial. And I know that it can be an expense sometimes. Sometimes the temptation is to say, right, I'm just going to take everything offline and I'm going to be unavailable and I'm going to check out and I'm going to go on maternity leave. Now, referring back to my earlier point, that was not something that I was in a position to do. And so I thought about, how can I make it really bloody obvious what it is that I do? And I spent time working on that and reworking it and really figuring out those details. I wasn't being generic. I wasn't having sweeping statements. I wasn't paying attention to what people said you should say. I started speaking much more from the heart, directly to my ideal clients. I started really saying what I could do and sharing my portfolio online. And again, that was so important, because so much work came in the last few months of my pregnancy and in the first few months. So the fact that I was still live and alive made it so people could pay me, people could book me. And sometimes if people book you for 6 months in advance, say for a speaking gig, you can have 50% of that up front. And when you know that you're not working a lot, that 50% of that speaker's fee is lovely, lovely money. Thank you very much. So yes, it's great. Number 5, and this is the final point of this video, so come back for part 2. Don't underestimate everything that you've done before. I think the temptation, especially in social media, especially in the internet lands and keeping up with what everybody's doing, the temptation is to create something brand new before the baby's born, or to do something or get back on it, or I don't know, get in your clothes so you can have your photo shoot and show the new refined version of you. There was no refinement in me, that's for sure. And I just wanted to say that it's okay to be in that moment where you go, do you know what? I've been doing this for a long time now. And even if you haven't, don't underestimate all those transformational skills, all those things that you've done previously. They are worthy, they are useful, they are important. And so instead of trying to create and do all of these things, maybe when you're at a vulnerable time, it's okay to rest a moment and stick with what you know, the reliable things, and pull them out and display to everybody. If any of this has resonated, here are some options that you may want to take. The first, you can look at my goal setting page, nikkiraby.com/goal setting. This is all about planning out your next chapter. Maybe you want the money course, so look at the money page of my website, nikkiraby.com/money. Maybe you want to look at your pricing and your packaging. Maybe it's website stuff, so have a look at the online section, nikkiraby.com/online. Or you just want to ask me anything. You want to pick my brains for 45 minutes, ask me all the questions. What should I do? Where should I go? That's what I do, so I can help you out. All of the information is online on my website, nikkiraby.com. Any questions, you can of course add the messenger. So there's a little icon in the bottom right hand corner of my website. Just send me a message there. It comes directly to me. Nobody else sees it. And let me know what you're after, where you need help, where you need support. And I will do my best to help you to do that. All right, come back for part 2 and I'll see you in a bit. Bye.